The Buffalo Bills are rolling into town for what's shaping up to be one of the most anticipated joint practices of the entire preseason. And there are more than a few storylines to watch as these two teams share the field leading up to their clash in preseason game number 2. But let's be honest, most eyes will be on the big names, the fresh faces, and the position battles that could seriously reshape the Chicago Bears depth chart going into the regular season. And it all starts with the trenches, because let's face it, if your offensive line isn't clicking, nothing else works. Right now, the left tackle situation is arguably the most intriguing storyline in all of Bears training camp. There's no clear winner. In fact, it almost feels like every time someone gets a slight edge, someone else steps in to shake it up. It began as a battle between 3 players, shifted to 2, and now, just like that, it's expanded to 4 with the emergence of Theo Benedict. Yep, the Canadian left tackle is officially in the mix, and if that doesn't tell you how wide open this competition really is, I don't know what does. Braxton Jones, Theo Benedict, Aussie Trappill, and Kieran Amagashi are all scrambling for first-team reps, and no one has locked down the job yet. During Wednesday's session, we saw Jones and Benedict splitting reps with the starters. That's a big deal. When you're talking about a guy like Benedict, who came in under the radar and wasn't even considered a serious contender at the start of camp, getting that kind of exposure with the ones is telling. And if you listen to what offensive line coach Dan Rosar is saying, the strategy is clear. They're rotating Trappill over to the right tackle spot to test his swing potential. That's insurance in case he doesn't win the starting role outright. They want him to be comfortable on both sides because if he's not the guy at left tackle, he needs to be ready to plug in anywhere. Then there's Kieran Amagashi, who finally returned to full-speed practice and is currently buried with the third team. Whether he can claw his way back into contention is one of the big questions going into the joint practice. And while we can speculate all day, the true pecking order is going to reveal itself when the pads are on and the Bills' defensive front is charging hard. If Benedict continues to get first-team reps, if Jones doesn't clean up his technique, or if someone like Trappill flashes dominant reps on the right side, this whole situation could evolve yet again. The truth is, the Bears coaching staff is sending a loud and clear message. No one has taken command of this battle yet. So they're keeping the door wide open for anyone willing to kick it down. Now let's zoom out and talk quarterbacks, because Caleb Williams is about to face a massive test. It's one thing to shine in training camp and move the ball against your own defense, but now the lights are a little brighter. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are on the other side of the field, and while it's just a practice, make no mistake, this is a chance for Caleb to measure himself against one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. Let's not get it twisted. No one's expecting Caleb Williams to outplay Josh Allen in this setting. Allen is an MVP, a perennial Pro Bowler, a guy who has dragged the Bills franchise out of irrelevance and into championship contention. Before Allen, Buffalo was a punchline. Now they're the kings of the AFC East. He's already got 7 playoff wins, 2 AFC championship appearances, and a regular season MVP under his belt. If not for Patrick Mahomes standing in his way, he'd probably have a Super Bowl ring right now. So no, we're not comparing resumes. But what we are doing is asking the question, how far is Caleb from that level? Because that's where the Bears want him to be. That's the expectation when you take a quarterback number 1 overall. The encouraging part? Caleb's development is arguably ahead of where Josh Allen's was at this point in his career. Remember, Allen was raw coming out of Wyoming. Big arm, freakish athleticism, but very inconsistent. His first 2 seasons in Buffalo were filled with erratic throws, questionable decision-making, and flashes of brilliance that were too few and far between. It wasn't until year 3, around the middle of that 2019 season, when things started to click. That's when we started seeing the player he would become. Caleb, meanwhile, already looks like he belongs. His footwork, his poise in the pocket, his accuracy, especially when throwing on the move, are all signs that he might not need 3 years to get it right. But again, every journey is different. Allen took time. Caleb might take less. Or maybe he'll need his own adjustment period. Either way, this practice against Buffalo is a valuable litmus test. How does he handle a fast, disciplined defense? Can he bounce back after a bad throw? Can he keep pace in red zone drills? These are the things coaches are watching closely. And even if Allen outshines him, which is entirely possible, the goal is progress, not perfection. You want to see Caleb compete, command the huddle, and make throws that only he can make. On the other side of the ball, there's a very different kind of battle brewing. The Bears' secondary is going to be tested in a big way, and they'll have to do it without their top two cornerbacks. Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon are both sidelined, which opens the door for the rest of the cornerback room to step up. That means this is a golden opportunity for players like Tariq Stevenson, Terrell Smith, Josh Blackwell, and even guys like Trey Flowers to prove they can hang with real NFL talent. And let's not act like the Bills are lacking firepower. They may not have that one megastar wide receiver, but what they do have is depth and variety. Keon Coleman brings size and physicality. Khalil Shakir works out of the slot and might be their most consistent weapon. Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, Josh Palmer. They're all capable of creating mismatches. And then you factor in tight ends like Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, plus a dangerous pass-catching back like James Cook, and suddenly this joint practice turns into a stress test for Chicago's depth. Tariq Stevenson has looked solid in camp, but now he gets to show whether he can hold his own against NFL starters. Terrell Smith is coming back from injury. Can he hit the ground running? And what about guys like Nan Wright, who've been quietly stacking good practices? You want to see someone rise to the occasion here. You want to see plays on the ball, sticky coverage, good communication in the secondary. Because if Jalen and Kyler miss real time during the season, the Bears will need someone to lean on. Now let's flip it back to the offense for a minute, because there's a name that keeps coming up, not because of what he's doing, but because of what he's not doing. DJ Moore. Where is he? This is your number one wideout. The guy making $27 million per year. And yet, here we are in the middle of training camp, and his name just isn't popping the way you'd expect. On Wednesday, he had a clean drop on what should have been a 25-yard gain from Caleb. Just a perfect throw over the middle, and it clanked off his hands. Look, it's one play, and no one's panicking. We know what DJ Moore is. We've seen him dominate before. But it's been a quiet camp for a player who's supposed to be one of the most dynamic weapons on this roster. If he explodes in this joint practice, nobody will remember the slow start. But if the silence continues, those whispers about whether he's fully integrated into the offense, or worse, whether he's losing a step, are only going to get louder. And speaking of whispers, let's talk about the one issue that's quietly plagued the Bears defense for a while now: run defense. Last week against the Dolphins, the Bears looked dominant for long stretches. But the handful of plays where they got gashed all came on the ground. Miami found edges. They attacked soft spots. And while the Bears eventually clamped down, you can't ignore the fact that some of the same cracks that showed last year are still there. Joe Brady and the Bills bring a different kind of challenge. They're physical, they're creative, and they've got a legit rushing threat in James Cook, who just got paid, by the way. Add in Ray Davis and the occasional scramble from Josh Allen, and this isn't a team you can sleep on. The defensive line needs to be sound. Guys like Jervin Dexter and DeAnthony Jones can't afford to lose contain or get washed out of place. Setting the edge, plugging the A-gaps, maintaining discipline. This stuff matters, especially in practices where the tempo is high and the live reps are limited. And then there's the linebacking core. TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds need to lead the charge. Ruben Hippolyte had some solid flashes in the preseason opener. Can he stack another good day? Because once again, it's not just about starting caliber talent. It's about depth. If someone goes down, who's next? And more importantly, can they hold their own when it counts? That's the question looming over this Bears defense right now. Can they not just fly around and make splash plays, but do the dirty work, the grunt work, the unglamorous reps that win football games in December and January? And we haven't even touched on what the reps are going to look like overall. Last week, the starters sat in the preseason opener, so those joint practices were all about the ones. But with starters expected to play on Sunday night, we might see a bit more mixing and matching. More twos and threes getting reps with the top unit. More rotation. More evaluation. And that stage only gets hotter as we inch closer to Sunday night. With the starters suiting up this time, the intensity of this joint practice takes on a whole new layer of meaning. These are the last true dress rehearsals before roster cuts start getting real and decisions are made. The Bears coaching staff is watching everything: body language, effort between the whistles, leadership when things get chippy, and of course, who actually shows up when it matters. Because when you're lined up against another team's starters, you don't have the luxury of blaming chemistry or missed assignments on familiarity. This is as close as it gets to real football without the official lights. Caleb Williams, for all the excitement and scrutiny, now faces his biggest challenge yet in an NFL setting. It's no longer about executing clean drills or making highlight throws against teammates who already know your tendencies. It's about adapting on the fly, facing exotic looks you haven't seen before, reading disguises, reacting to pressure, and doing it all with someone like Josh Allen casually launching missiles on the other field. This is the type of setting that exposes weaknesses or reveals how far along your quarterback really is. And don't think for a second that the Bears coaching staff isn't using this week as a barometer. They want to see how Caleb handles pressure when it's real. Not just pressure in the pocket, but pressure of the moment. Does he command the huddle when things break down? Does he rally the offense after a bad rep? Does he keep his eyes downfield even when everything's collapsing around him? These things matter more than the final stat line from a joint practice. And then there's the pass rush, which has quietly become one of the most scrutinized aspects of this team. With so much invested into the defensive line over the past year, it's time to start seeing consistent disruption. Not just sacks, but pressure, tip passes, closing windows, and collapsing pockets. Montez Sweat is the anchor of this group, but the Bears need more than just one player flashing. Guys like DeMarcus Walker and Dominique Robinson have to show they can win consistently off the edge. Jervin Dexter and Zach Pickens, the young interior duo, have to be more than just rotational bodies. They need to start creating chaos in the backfield. And against a quarterback like Josh Allen, who thrives on escaping pressure and extending plays, discipline is just as important as aggression. You overpursue, he'll make you pay. You let him get outside the pocket, and the play's suddenly alive again. That kind of dual-threat quarterback tests every part of defense. Your corners have to cover longer. Your linebackers have to spy and react. Your safeties can't afford to bite on fakes or jump short routes too early. And all of that is on display in these joint practices. You can't replicate this kind of test in your own camp. The Bills don't play like the Bears. They're more vertical, more spread, and much more unpredictable. So, for a defensive coordinator like Eric Washington, these are invaluable reps, not just for evaluation, but for stress testing the schemes, seeing how far along the install really is, and whether the communication on the back end holds up when the speed picks up. Speaking of speed, let's go back to the offense, because if there's one area that needs to take a step forward, it's timing. That's not a knock on the talent. Caleb has the arm, the poise, and the creativity. The receivers are talented across the board. The tight end room might be the deepest it's been in years. But what we haven't consistently seen yet is that offensive rhythm where everything clicks. Where the drops are clean, the routes are sharp, the ball comes out on time, and the protection holds just long enough to finish the play. It's been fits and starts, moments of brilliance followed by lulls. And that's to be expected with a rookie quarterback and a retooled offense. But now's the time to start putting it together. You want to see DJ more snap out of the quiet stretch and start dominating. You want Rome Odunze to keep building momentum and show that he's not just a camp darling, but a real threat to opposing secondaries. You want someone like Colston Loveland to make defenders respect the middle of the field. And most of all, you want Caleb to tie it all together. Not with jaw-dropping highlights, but with command. He doesn't need to be perfect. He just needs to be consistent. Get in and out of the huddle cleanly. Avoid negative plays. Stack completions. Move the chains. These are the things that start to reveal whether this offense is ready to roll come week one. And while all eyes are on the starters, don't sleep on the guys fighting for those final few roster spots. Every year, someone makes a name for themselves in joint practices. Someone finds a way to flash just enough to make coaches hesitate when final cuts come. Maybe it's a corner who gets his hand on a couple of balls. Maybe it's a wide receiver who runs a perfect route on third down. Maybe it's a special teams guy who flies down the field and drops a returner with perfect form. These are the reps that matter. These are the moments that guys dream about. And for a coaching staff trying to shape the back half of the roster, they're worth more than any preseason stat sheet. Whispers are beginning to circulate through the Bears' locker room, hinting at a deeper fissure within the team than fans have yet fully grasped. Sources suggest that quarterback Caleb Williams, who has been the subject of much speculation since joining the Bears, is reportedly refusing to play alongside wide receiver DJ Moore. While the organization has officially denied any internal conflict, insiders paint a different picture, describing a tense atmosphere in practices where both players are said to avoid direct interaction. The implications of such a dispute could be massive, considering Williams' status as a rising star and Moore's consistent production as one of the Bears' leading receiving threats. Coaches have reportedly attempted to mediate, but according to those close to the situation, neither party has shown willingness to compromise, creating an environment that could ripple through the team's chemistry and overall performance. This rumor, though unconfirmed in official channels, is enough to spark debate among analysts and fans alike, raising questions about leadership, locker room culture, and the Bears' ability to maintain cohesion during a critical stretch of the season. Every detail, from sideline interactions to targeted play calls, now seems under scrutiny as speculation grows about how the team might navigate this alleged standoff. Observers are particularly intrigued by how management will respond, as any misstep could exacerbate tensions. Adding fuel to the speculation, social media chatter has exploded in response to perceived slights and cryptic statements from both players. Fans and sports commentators are combing through interviews, post-game comments, and even subtle body language and practice footage, trying to find evidence that supports the claims of a fractured relationship between Caleb Williams and DJ Moore. Analysts note that Williams' reported unwillingness to align with Moore could fundamentally alter the Bears' offensive schemes, potentially limiting play-calling options and impacting the team's scoring potential. DJ Moore, known for his professionalism and consistency, is reportedly taking the rumors in stride publicly, but sources close to him suggest there is private frustration regarding the perceived lack of support from his quarterback. The tension has sparked debates in fan forums, where speculation about possible trades, benching scenarios, or even mid-season restructurings of the roster is rampant. While no official statements confirm the depth of the discord, the mere possibility that two key offensive stars might be at odds has generated a whirlwind of conjecture that seems poised to dominate headlines. Coaches, team officials, and veteran players reportedly are walking a fine line and trying to keep the locker room unified. But the rumor itself seems to have taken on a life of its own, spreading faster than any press release could contain. As the narrative intensifies, insiders hint at potential consequences for team morale if the rift between Williams and Moore persists. Teammates are reportedly aware of the tension, with some choosing to stay neutral, while others are allegedly aligning subtly with one side or the other, creating an atmosphere fraught with speculation and unease. The possibility that this standoff could influence practice intensity, focus during film study, or even in-game execution has analysts theorizing about cascading effects throughout the Bears' offensive unit. Some suggest that management could be considering contingency plans, from altering the depth chart to exploring trades that might ease the tension. The idea of a mid-season adjustment is daunting but not unprecedented in professional sports. And insiders speculate that front office executives might be quietly assessing the best route to preserve both player relationships and team performance. Beyond the technical aspects, the human element looms large. Locker room dynamics, personal pride, and ego all intersect in ways that could challenge the Bears' ability to maintain cohesion. Even casual observers note that rumors of discord, regardless of their ultimate veracity, can affect the mental state of players, their confidence in one another, and ultimately the outcomes of tightly contested games, creating a layer of drama that fans cannot ignore. Each practice, meeting, and sideline interaction is now interpreted through the lens of this alleged conflict, magnifying the stakes beyond mere statistics. Complicating matters further, the media has latched on to subtle cues from both players, interpreting their every move and comment as potential evidence of ongoing friction. Rumors suggest that Caleb Williams may be recalibrating his focus on certain targets, potentially bypassing DJ Moore in critical situations, though such speculation remains unverified. Meanwhile, Moore's reported professionalism and experience could position him as a stabilizing force. Yet even his reliability might not be enough to completely diffuse what insiders describe as a fragile equilibrium in the team's offensive chemistry. Sports journalists have speculated on potential interventions by coaching staff, including one-on-one meetings, mediation sessions, or even restructured practice rotations designed to limit direct conflict while preserving on-field productivity. Every game, practice, and press conference has taken on added significance, with observers looking for signs that either player is adjusting behavior or strategy in response to this rumored tension. Analysts also weigh the psychological implications, noting that persistent rumors of discord can affect focus, confidence, and execution on game day, even if the players maintain outward professionalism. The swirling uncertainty has transformed what might otherwise be a routine season into a narrative filled with intrigue, as fans and commentators alike theorize about what steps management might take to resolve, or at least contain, the brewing storm. The interplay between perception and reality seems poised to define public opinion of the Bears' locker room in the coming weeks, further intensifying the scrutiny. Adding another layer of intrigue, some insiders speculate that this alleged standoff could influence contract negotiations, future roster decisions, and even long-term strategic planning for the Bears. Should the situation escalate, management may face pressure to make significant decisions to preserve harmony, potentially affecting trades, free agency moves, or adjustments to coaching strategies designed to mitigate conflict. Fans are particularly attentive to subtle hints in social media interactions, interviews, and press conferences, seeking evidence that the players are either softening their positions or entrenching themselves further. Analysts suggest that the long-term implications could extend beyond a single season, influencing perceptions of leadership both in the locker room and within the organization. The rumor mill has even touched on hypothetical scenarios in which one or both play. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.